Anyway, yes, as Steve said, I go back a long way to Adweek back in the 80s. And I was editor of Marketing Daily for 12 years. I don't know if he mentioned that at MediaPost. And now I'm here at events blogging. You might have seen some of the blogs already. And moderating panels. Some of which I know a lot about and some of which I don't know too much. So I'm really relying today on our panelists to fill us in on the topic at hand. And first, would you introduce yourselves and we'll take it from there?
I'm Landon Perry. I'm the director of paid search at Greenline Digital. We're a full-service digital agency headquartered in New York, but obviously we run in the U.S. and in the U.K.
Jennifer Jackson, I'm VP Business Lead, and we are a full-service agency in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay. You also are the agency for the previous speaker, right?
We are. Third is one of my accounts.
Great. Now, the topic here is how you build the best tech stack. When we talked about it on the phone, it was like, well, if we knew that, we'd be the richest people. But let's start with what kind of tech stacks that you're comfortable with now. As we all know, the objective is for the brand to sell more of whatever they're producing. And the people like yourselves are there to help them. And a long time ago, it used to be buy an ad in a newspaper or put a spot on TV. Today, it's much more complex, and there's so many advisors, if you will, out there that are experts on every single social and search and programmatic. What's in your tech stack, Jennifer?
Yeah, I think that the best tech stack actually has a good quality between first party and third party. In a past life, I actually worked at Microsoft and managed some of the commercial businesses. So even for Microsoft, it was a chore to understand how do you take that understanding of first party data and make it usable in a third party space. The two don't always connect really well together. I know too when we came on when I was working on Fifth Third, and Nick alluded to it, is we knew a whole bunch about our internal customer, but with the likes of Google and Facebook, there's very limited ways that you can use your first-party data to inform third-party data. So it's really about understanding how to package that and use your first-party data the best way possible across those third-party channels.
Okay.
Yeah, for us, one of the biggest aspects is how can we make sure that our clients' tech stacks get integrated into our search marketing? And one way that we constantly do that is trying to move beyond the pixel. A lot of times, some of our clients, especially when we're onboarding, might be using the Google Pixel or a platform pixel. We found great success with mapping in CRM data into our search optimization. So, if it's a specific KPI, if it's an actual, not just a lead, but it's an actual sale or an action, mapping that in at the keyword level. Also, bring in like Invoca, Dialog Tech partners, things like that. We found a lot of efficiency that way. If we can integrate a lot of the systems that the clients have into our paid search data, so that way we're able to see like, okay, it's actually this keyword set, it's this segment, this group of keywords that's actually driving the performance for your business. It's not just our pixels that are saying it, which obviously you can get into deduplication issues and things like that.
Does that sound familiar, Jennifer?
It does.
Now, when we talked, you said that there was a symbiotic relationship, something like Google and Facebook have to help one another. Can you explain some more about what you mean by that?
Yeah, you kind of saw on the charts that Nick was sharing that, and interesting enough, one of the panelists showed it yesterday, that there's kind of that beautiful subset of, I believe it was like paid search plus social plus SEM that work really well together. So it's really making sure that your media optimizes within itself. So especially with a first touch attribution model, search is always going to look phenomenal, right? But when you start to add things in like social, because it's that top of mind awareness, it actually helps to drive your search. Because people saw it, they might not attribute it that moment, but we knew in particular with checking accounts that it's a really short window. So really being able to create that symbiotic relationship, that the number of impressions you have actually helps to drive those searches, and specifically your branded searches. That really is the most efficient way to drive your cost per. And so we know that those two work together, as you kind of saw in those charts previously.
Can you add to that?
Yeah. We run into it all the time with our clients. They're always wanting, number one, ask, which attribution model should we be using, and are we spending enough in social? Search is looking, which obviously I'm a little biased on the search side. I'm like, yeah, search is looking great. But yeah, just to echo that, there's been multiple times when, some clients might pull back on, very similar to, the bank previously, might pull back on social, and we see that halo effect disappear. But then there's other times with, some of our clients where, we do see that lift to branded paid search when we start spending more in social, spending more in display. So yeah, definitely that, echo that full marketing mix is very necessary. In the world we live in today, you can't just spend in search. You have to have it across channel.
Cross-channel, yes. I asked you this when we talked on the phone too, and I'm still not clear, but it might be me. How does the third-party data fit in, or is it first-party fitting into third, or third into first? Can you explain how that works, fitting the third-party data into the first-party data to make something goes down the funnel? Is that right? Go ahead, Jennifer.
Yeah, so it's really about picking the right third-party data set. So, and then from there creating lookalikes based on your first-party data. So in the instance of understanding what a quality checking account for Fifth Third is, it's modeling that out and understanding what the best third-party data is that will be able to recreate that for you. And you can test that out through various data sets. And you can actually bring in second-party data. So you can actually create a partnership between, a bank and, like footwear. Famous Footwear. So where the Fifth Third could share their data with Famous Footwear, and from there the two can actually create a second party data set. But it's really about recreating who that primary customer is through those various data sets.
Okay.
Did that make more sense?
It does, yeah, definitely. And we were going to talk, Landon, about some of your clients, or one of your clients, but can you give us, you don't have to name the client, but can you give us some examples of the work that you've been doing?
Yeah, again, I'll just kind of jump off what you were just talking about there. We do a lot of correlation modeling. We have a maternity clothing line, which is obviously a very, very specific niche market. It's not just dresses, it's not just pants, it's for specific individuals at a very specific time of life, and you really only have a few months to get them. And obviously, there's multiple, clothing stages throughout that process. So we work with a partner that allows us to correlate those audience data together to marry some third-party data up with the first-party data to try to find who is that key audience. And it's not just in search, it's also we deploy those audiences in social a lot. But we do have the capability to bring those into Google AdWords as a custom audience. And yeah, we've seen great success that way with incorporating that data, correlating it out, and moving beyond just what we would typically do in search, like an RLSA list or an in-market audiences or something like that. Allows us to get a lot more granular and really dialed in.
Okay, and when we talked, Landon, you also spoke about vetting the tech.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah, obviously, and this is, we deal with this with the clients a lot of times. They'll come to us and say, you know, what tools should we be using? What should we be adding to the stack? And obviously we have some, you know, we've worked with some partners and certain tool sets. If I was to just, some tips that I typically tell clients is, you know, we always want to make sure that the tools are communicating with each other. Obviously, you can have a CRM, your email management system, your, you know, data, your DMP, all these tool sets. You don't want to create a Frankenstack, you know, where, you know, it's just a monster of technology and nothing really interacts with each other. So making sure that there's, you know, API integrations, making sure that the data can flow through smoothly, that's always a key. Obviously, I'm a little biased on the search side. I want to make sure that I can get that data back into a management platform like Adobe or Kinchu or Marin, things like that. And the second thing I always tell them is, you know, I know we're talking about like, the future-proof stack. I think that's a misnomer. I think the only future-proof stack is one that's ever evolving. There's always new partners, new platforms, new tools coming out, and even the ones that are out are always adding new functionality. So the only way really to future-proof your tech stack is to make sure they're constantly reviewing your tool set and constantly ever evolving, adding new ones, taking some out, realizing that this partner you might be paying with is actually doing something that another partner's doing, and you might be able to save some money. So yeah, you know, helpful tips I think some of our clients have gleaned from us.
Absolutely. What about sharing data? Jennifer, we talked about that a little bit. And I'm guessing that when you were working with Fifth Third, you were doing a lot of that, as well as getting data from sources that, unlike Facebook and Google, who don't share it. How did that work for you and the client trying to get shared data out of other sources?
Yeah, I mean, the best way to do that is in a environment where the privacy rules are managed. So, you know, using a DMP where those privacy elements can be masked, and then being able to create those lookalikes without having the identifiers is really critical. And actually building on what Landon was saying, it is a full-time job to understand what are the various DMP opportunities and DSP opportunities out there, to always be willing to change and understand what that new offering might bring to the table, and then again adhering to privacy rules with sharing of data.
What do you say?
Yeah, we had a cancer treatment hospital as a client, so we had HIPAA, you know, rules we had to deal with. So, yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think the atmosphere we're in today, with especially what's happening in Europe, with, you know, all of the regulation, with, you know, client data, things like that, you really have to make sure that you have everything buttoned up. Obviously, we want to make sure that we're obviously staying within regulation, but also keeping your customers in mind. If we're using first-party data in search, if we're marrying that up, making sure that, you know, that we're doing everything properly by the book, and also being, you know, clear and transparent, obviously on your websites, that we are collecting your data and things like that.
Excellent. Any last shares before we turn to questions? Or have you shared
I don't have any.
Okay.
Nothing for me.
Well, I think then we'll turn to questions now. Steve? Anyone?
That light is so bright.
I know.
Thank you.
Don't all speak at once.
Data shall set you free. Come on, there's got to be some questions.
You understood everything they said?
Do you have any questions?
Oh, I couldn't stop.
Well, let me follow up on the privacy question. Are you specifically looking at, say, the California legislation that's coming up? And have any of you who have international clients especially learned anything from dealing with GDPR that you're already putting into place or anticipating putting into place in the U.S. market?
I worked in China.
Wow.
Yeah, for 2.5
they
years
got their
on
own
Proctor.
rules.
So talk about weird privacy. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's really, I mean, look at Facebook right now. You know, there are going to be a ton of changes happening with Facebook and what you can and can't advertise because of the privacy laws. So I think it's actually looking at implementing within your own tech stacks what your triggers are and how you manage privacy, and looking across other mediums and understanding what are the privacy regulations of a Facebook and a Google and Bing, et cetera, because that's where it's going to really start to hit home, is the privacy that they are following or not following, actually. Because I think clients actually do a better job of managing privacy probably than some of other media partners that we work with.
Yeah, and I would just say, like, do it now. Obviously, you know, being in the U.S., we have a little bit more time. Obviously, I know there's some stuff going on in California, but I mean, obviously, look at Europe. Start implementing those changes today. You don't want to wait until the regulations start happening. You want to make sure that you're ready. Obviously, stay ahead of the curve. Make sure those systems are in place.
Landon, you mentioned avoiding the Frankenstack.
Yeah.
But so I'm curious about how consolidation in the technology industry has impacted sort of what used to be an age-old question that I don't hear discussed as much now, which is choosing between best of breed for particular technologies and choosing a more integrated stack?
Yeah, and I think obviously some of this is probably driven by competition from the partners. I do see a few that are, you know, trying to, you know, add more diversity, add more functionality. I've seen quite a few clients just fall into that trap of we have, you know, 6 or 8 different platforms. They don't talk to each other. They don't function together. And I've seen the ill effects that can bring. Obviously, I think a lot of the partners, they know the benefit of the API integrations, you know, making sure that they play nice with the others. So it's not a topic that typically comes up a lot, but it's always, I think, a helpful reminder just to remember, like, look at the documentation, vet the partners, make sure that if you do have something that's core, like a CRM or a DMP, that, you know, this is my foundation, this is what everything's built off of. Make sure that it plays nice with the new partner that you're bringing in. Don't just chase out the new shiny tool that just came out if you're going to have to be exporting out CSVs to pipe it into some other platform. Like, you don't want to do that.
I oftentimes like to think of tech stack as a house, right? When people are shopping for a home today, what does everybody want? You want open concept, right? You want to be able to have clear sight lines and you want to be able to see everyone. The last thing you want is a house that has all these little disparate rooms that, like, don't actually seem like a part of the house. Like, you built a bunch of extensions onto it, because that's essentially what ends up happening. So think of your tech like a house and how you want that house to function.
That's a great analogy there. Now I'm starting to understand.
Guys, thank you very much. Nina, thanks.
Okay.